So you're wondering what paint correction is. Well, let me show you. First step, wash the car. Next step, rinse the vehicle. So even though the car's been washed twice, something I want to show you is how to tell when your car needs to have more wax applied to it. This hood is relatively clean as far as large pieces of dirt, but you can see that the water just sits on top and kind of pools. It's not forming little dots, if you will. So it's not hydrophobic. The water's just sitting there on top of the clear coat. So this area right here has been clayed, and this is clay bar. And the way that you clay a vehicle is, I like to use ONR, Optimum No Rinse. You can also use Quick Detailer, Meguiar's Quick Detailer. You spray an area to get it lubricated. Then you just glide the clay back and forth. Oh, this section right here has already been clayed. So you hear that? Nothing, right? Watch this. You hear that? And over here, how about this? So again, clayed surface, not clayed. So interesting thing I figured out about this vehicle, most of the contaminants are on the hood, running along the side like so, and then around the rear, which leads me to believe that this vehicle is probably parked underneath a tree a lot of times. And I'm thinking what's happening is it's fallout, tree sap, bird droppings, things like that. Because more often than not, when you clay a vehicle, this is the area all the way along there, below where I'm drawing a line with my finger. That's the area that gets the most contaminants, brake dust, rail dust, road grime, etc. Whereas this is almost the complete opposite. So from here all the way around, and then same thing around the back side of the vehicle. So I'll be very curious to find out from the owner of this vehicle whether or not they park it underneath a tree at work. So here's the results. And looking at the clay bar, I'm guessing that what was on the surface was mostly pollen. So that's the color of the clay inside there when it's new. And you can see how it's sort of a pollen color. And this is a clay bar that I usually use on glass. You can see how faded it is and how much gunk there is inside of there. As I said, usually the contaminants are on the lower portions of the vehicle and the front end. Especially with a car like this, you're going to kill a lot of bugs. So that's where they get embedded. Some of them etch in, but if they're not etched in, you can use clay bar. But this particular piece of clay, I just wanted to show you the results. You can see how white it would be versus how it ended up. Alright, so the vehicle's now been clayed, all the contaminants removed. Time to do compound and polish. Sometimes it just calls for a polish, sometimes it calls for a two-step, compound and then polish. This particular compound is Meguiar's M105, polish is M205, and I'm using a foam pad and a microfiber pad and a Griot's 6-inch random orbital. So some people like to apply the polish or compound and then use the machine to spread it. I like to spread it by hand, just by a simple applicator pad. I try to get it as even as possible, that way when I come back with the machine, it's already spread and it's not going to sling and kick off of the surface. So I'll work this in by hand and then pick up the machine. So I've got the polish in there by hand, now it's time to start using the machine. And when I turn the machine on, I have it already set to high because I don't have to worry about it slinging. And then, because this is compound, obviously I want to do gentle passes, not too much downward force, not too fast front to back, and I don't want to leave it at any one spot for too long because heat will build up on the pad, and that's how you can mar the surface. Especially because this is the compound that I'm using, it's a little bit more abrasive, and it does a really good job of cutting without cutting too far into the clear coat, so it's a nice even surface. Okay, so the whole car has been compounded now. First by hand, then using the dual action. The next step is to remove the compound and then apply the polish in pretty much the same way. So I guess now's a good time to talk about the specifics of compounding, polishing, and paint correction. Probably more than you want to know, but real quick, some compounds and polishes have what's called SMAT, super micro abrasive technology. Some have diminishing abrasives, meaning the longer you work it, the smaller the particles get and the less cutting they do. But I really like Meguiar's 105 and Meguiar's M205. I think they work the best on most types of vehicles. This particular vehicle is going to require a two-step paint correction, compound and then polish. However, some vehicles just require a polish and then wax on top. It all depends on how the vehicle is used and how it's going to be used. And some things to consider are, has the vehicle been sitting outside in the sun all day? Therefore, the paint's very hot. What's the ambient air temperature? What's the humidity? How's the vehicle going to be used the next day? These are all things you should be communicating to your detailer about to find out about the very best value for your money. So when a polish is applied by hand, you can see the results. That's why it's so important to use a dual action machine polisher, because it really helps to spread it and get it worked in. So you can see how even this side is as compared to this side. So here's the same hood as earlier, and you can tell based on how the water is going to respond that it's got a hydrophobic coating. It's been compounded, it's been polished, and put a coat of wax on, and this is before the final coat of wax. So you see how the water just sheets off? That is a protected surface. Well, the sun came back out, so I'm going to take advantage of it before it goes behind the clouds and do a walk around. It's not completely done. I need to dial it in just a little bit further. I think you can appreciate the difference that a paint correction makes on a vehicle. Now, not all vehicles are the same. Not all will respond the same. Some have hard paint, some have soft paint. Some only need a one-step correction. Some, like this one, based on the shape that it was in, need a two-step correction. But the end result is fascinating. When done properly, thoroughly washed, clay bar is used, and a one or two step correction, you can really appreciate the final product compared to how it started. Okay, so I'm standing here with the customer, and earlier what I saw was if you draw a belt line, the contaminants were above the belt line, which leads me to believe that at work, possibly, you parked the car underneath the tree. Is that correct?
I did.
I could tell because most of the contaminants were up top, and it looked like tree sap and also looked like pollen, whereas usually the contaminants are down below.
Yep.
So,
yep. That's what happened.